A Goofy movie is certainly one of Disney's goofier movies, pun intended for obvious reasons, but it's also arguably one of Disney's greatest films to date, one that ages with the viewer, allowing for two main takeaways, or perspectives. One for the kids watching, where it reminds them that a parent's love is simply something they don't understand yet, and that their parents are trying their best. And the second is for the parents out there who probably got roped into watching in the first place but ended up loving the heck out of this film, as it reminds them that being overly strict on a kid comes with its consequences, and that it's equally important to be there for your kid when they're in need of fun as well as a swift kick to the rear.
And you are about to read a book that my foot wrote. It's called On the Road to In Your.
This film has one of the best father-son relationships from Disney and a simple yet rather deep story, as well as an awesome soundtrack, nostalgic visuals, and emotional themes that tug on your heartstrings. It's the full package in terms of animation, and while many people praise it for its layered, dual narrative of first relating to Max and then sympathizing with Goofy later on, there's really so much more going on here. So much more that we simply must talk about it. And so, in honor of Father's Day, that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's dig in. Like I said before, A Goofy Movie is arguably one of Disney's best films to date, and while we've talked about many great animated films on this channel before, I've never really explained what truly makes an animated film good. At least one that's geared towards children anyways. Now obviously it all comes down to the individual viewer, but I think we can objectively narrow it down to three subjective guidelines. Number one, the film either has to look amazing or sound amazing, and if it's able to both look immaculate and have a fantastic soundtrack, well, then the film has some true potential for greatness with its legacy. Number two is quite obvious, but it needs to tell a good story. But what does that mean? Again, this is a subjective matter, but from what I've seen with favorite animations, it either has a super fun or unique premise and the events that follow and fill in the rest of the plot are exciting to watch, or if it's a more low-key story, its characters are dynamic and engaging enough to steal the show and mesmerize their audience. And, probably most importantly, they're relatable. They have relatable quirks or traits, or are thrown into relatable situations. Whenever they're on screen, the audience, in this case children and perhaps young adults, feel like they're being represented and have an immediate vested interest in whatever happens next to these characters. But lastly, number three, the film has to have some great themes and lessons, especially ones geared towards children. Trust and truth, good versus evil, doing the right thing even when it's hard. The kid watching should have learned something by the end and want to be better, just like their new favorite character. Great animated films that kids want to watch over and over again, ones that persist in pop culture and aren't immediately forgotten after the next animated film that comes out, these are the ones that fulfill these conditions. And for many of us growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, me especially included, A Goofy Movie fit the bill and fit it well. And it has Max to thank for that in large part, as his character lies at the heart of all three of these conditions. He's their connective tissue. For one, Max is an immediately relatable protagonist, being embarrassed by his dad, not fitting in with the popular crowd but seemingly wanting to, and having a crush on a girl at school. These are all relatable traits for a kid. I mean, the first scene alone is a scary metaphor for Max's deepest fear of becoming just like his father, which is something many kids and teens and, heck, even adults worry about. And the movie goes a step further by making this a 90s rock-infused musical, with Max being the lead in the opening song, again serving as that connective tissue between one, a good soundtrack, and two, relatable characters. But we can't stop there. Simpler animated films like this one are only as strong as their heart, their emotion, and A Goofy Movie proudly wears its heart on its sleeve with great themes geared towards children, from simple ones such as lying versus telling the truth, to deeper ones such as a teen's fear of mediocrity. Let's take a closer look at the film's beginning moments. The film's opening sequence includes three key scenes. One, a nightmare for Max where he becomes his father and loses the girl because of it. Two, a brief exchange between Max and Goofy before Max leaves for school, already late for some mysterious plans that he's set in motion. And three, the movie's first musical number that is filled with lyrical hints about the film's overarching themes and lessons. This sequence is in many ways the film's thesis. And these opening scenes are absolutely brilliant, as they accomplish two main things in terms of setup for the rest of the film's narrative. Number 1, Max and his classmates love Powerline, so much so that they basically idolize him.
Oh, Dad, you ruined it.
Sorry about that. Who was he anyway?
It's only Powerline, Dad, the biggest rock star on the planet.
And number 2, Max wants to distance himself away from his dad, both figuratively and literally. He finds his father's ways to be embarrassing and, let's face it, goofy. And if that's not a relatable character trait for a kid, I don't know what is. And so when Max's feelings get too overwhelming on the way out the door and towards school, he and his classmates break out in song for the first musical number that again is filled with lines all about this very thing.
No more goof of the week like before. I need a new me, plus some positive proof that I'm not just a goof.
Another vital component that this sequence sets up is Max's current state and fear of mediocrity. He's not exactly the coolest kid in class, and he's got his eyes on a very special girl, Roxanne. Again, all relatable traits for your average kid. In fact, his first encounter with her ends up with him copying his dad's goofy hyuk and running off embarrassed, which we'll address again later with the film's ending.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I just, there I was, can't, I was saying, I can
And so, after this whole ordeal is over with putting on a show for the school body, dressed up and rocking out like Powerline, the film tees up Max's chance to be Roxanne's date to her friend Stacy's viewing party of Powerline's concert in LA. And of course, that's when our goofy dad gets the phone call that Max is out of line and going down a very dangerous path, which sets up their father-son road trip to go fishing and reconnect.
Couldn't be mine.
If I were you, Mr. Goof, I'd seriously reevaluate the way you're raising your child before he ends up in the electric chair.
It's a vacation with me and my best buddy.
Oh, Donald Duck?
No, silly. With you. A vacation, son. We'll spend some real quality time together.
I think I'm gonna be sick.
And this is really where our film kicks off, with Goofy dragging his son on a seemingly boring fishing trip, and Max starting out his relationship with Roxanne on a lie, that being Max attending Powerline's concert through his dad's fake connections. A simple enough yet wacky premise for the rest of this very goofy movie, filled with relatable characters and predicaments of a father trying to reconnect with his son, and a son who wants nothing more than to get away as far as possible from his father. And I think it's safe to say that the scenes that follow, which fill in the rest of the plot, are exciting to watch, so I won't give a play-by-play, but from a freeway musical number to a horrendous, uncomfortable song in a mechanical possum park, you don't need to hear it from me to know that this movie truly is goofy. But that said, I do want to highlight some important scenes for Max's arc here, starting off with their run-in with Bigfoot, where Max and his dad begin the process of burying the hatchet and resolving the main issue from the first half of the film. And even as a kid, it's hard not to feel for Goofy here, especially since Max is starting to meet him halfway with some classic Hi Dad soup.
What's so funny?
Hi Dad soup.
Huh?
Oh, don't tell me you don't remember Hi Dad soup.
But after Goofy and Bigfoot fall asleep, Max is left alone with his thoughts, every teen's worst fear really, and he has to wrestle and reflect on his poor choices of lying to Roxanne and now being stuck in a terrible situation with his father. And what's interesting here is that he comes clean in a way, writing out his thoughts and apologizing to Roxanne in a heartfelt letter. But then he cancels out his good karma with yet another poor decision that gives us a new main problem for the second half of the film. Changing the directions to LA for the concert and then being an anxious wreck for the rest of the film, having to play out the rest of the trip knowing full well what he's done. He might be a teenager, but he still has a conscience. In other words, our teenage protagonist Max does something only a teenage protagonist would do, something that is very stupid. He realizes the error in his ways of lying and apologizes to Roxanne in a letter. And yes, I'm aware she never receives the letter after he rips it up and lets it blow in the wind, but it's a good first step regardless. But then he goes ahead and makes the same mistake, merely shifting the victim from Roxanne to his father Goofy. And so, Max kicks off the second half of the film the same way he did the first half, by starting a relationship, this time a revised one with his dad, on a lie. Before we continue on to Act 3, let's take another spin through the eyes of Goofy, the second protagonist within this film, and the one who most adults connect with or relate to on their viewings. While this is a story of lying to get the girl for Max, for Goofy, it's a story of trust and betrayal and worry. Goofy is worried that his son is headed down the wrong path, and he wants to reconnect with him not just to save their relationship, but in his eyes, to save his son. And so this brings us to a deeper meaning present within this film, another subplot if you will. Max, as we know already, wants to stand out and get the girl. He doesn't necessarily want to be famous, but as we've seen in an extremely Goofy movie, he isn't exactly averse to it either. At the true heart of Max's story is a fear of not just being like his dad, but a fear of mediocrity. And to be fair, looking at Goofy, he is the definition of mediocre, at least in Max's eyes. He's your average corporate wage slave working with kids in a retail store under Pete's management in this movie, and working as an assembly line man at a toy factory in an extremely Goofy movie. But it's only a mediocre man like Goofy who has experienced enough in life and knows the hardships and tragedies that come with it who can truly appreciate it all. Appreciate the little moments, the small wins, the tiny, seemingly insignificant details that really make life worth living. And from Goofy's perspective in this film, he simply wants to show Max the true meaning of these small things, these little wonders in life. And so when he takes Max away from it all on a father-son camping trip, from his eyes, it's a chance to save his son and remind him of what's truly important.
We're going fishing?
Yup, just like my dad and me did. Two best buddies fishing on Lake Destiny. Away from it all.
I don't want to be away from it all, Dad. I like it all.
Again, Goofy is worried that his son is getting in with the wrong crowd, that being popular and famous and rowdy is too alluring to his son. Of course, we know from Max's perspective that that's not the case, but Goofy doesn't have the same information available to him that we do as the audience. This is another great and nuanced example of dramatic irony, which is something I bring up a lot in these videos and praise when it's done well, because it truly does elevate the narrative and our characters' motivations. But Goofy, he's a great dad because he's going to do something about it. He's going to revitalize his relationship with his son, embark onto the open road and out into God's country, and reconnect with nature. He's going to restore his son and instill upon him the right, wholesome values that a growing young man should have, because he doesn't want to lose Max forever, both figuratively and literally.
Why are you doing this to me, Dad?
'Cause I don't want you to end up in the electric chair.
Electric chair? What are you...
I'm not giving up on you, son.
And Goofy has high hopes that he can accomplish this goal.
He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie in the sky hopes.
Honestly, despite this film being set and coming out well before the era of big tech and social media's dominance, it really translates well to this current day and age. The more you consider it, the more obvious it is how analogous this film is to social media and its current effects on kids with Snapchat and Instagram, as well as parents with Facebook. I mean, we all want to be plugged in and seem more important than we probably are and most definitely feel. And both of our main protagonists, as well as their relationship, are easily corrupted and manipulated by these outside forces and influences, which is very reminiscent of social media's effect on mental health and relationships today. Pete continually sows the seeds of distrust within Goofy regarding his son. Pete is the one who plants the idea of a road trip. Pete is the one who repeatedly hammers Goofy on keeping Max under his thumb. And Pete is the one who, despite claiming to hate being the bearer of bad news, gladly delivers the upsetting fact that Max changed the map behind Goofy's back.
I just hate to be the bearer of bad news, but,
What is it, Pete?
your kid's duping you.
Plus, Max is also continually egged on and supported by his friends and classmates to pursue his dreams and to get the girl, except for maybe PJ, who often acts like the voice of reason.
I can't believe you, man. Whatever made you think your dad would fall for a stupid idea like that?
It wasn't stupid.
Come on, it was really stupid. Changing the map?
All these things and more assist in driving that wedge between Max and Goofy, straining their relationship, and making this whole predicament, this whole movie, possible in the first place. And an interesting parallel here is similar to Max's dumb decision to redo his mistake after learning the error of his ways. Goofy, who has come all this way to learn to trust his son again, falls into temptation from Pete and checks the map to learn that his son did indeed lie, but what's worse, he lost his trust in his son once again, bringing us full circle back to the beginning. So, I've stated my 3 criteria for a successful animation geared towards children, but what about films geared towards adults, or at least ones that keep them in mind? Well, on top of those 3 criteria from before, I think there's an additional 3 that a film must suffice in order to capture the eyes and hearts of all those grouchy grown-ups out there. Number 1, the film needs some sneaky adult jokes thrown in there for their amusement, or at least some very relatable lines and/or situations. Number 2, the film's characters need to be more than just engaging, they need to be layered and complex, like an onion or an ogre. And we've seen that a Goofy movie's characters are exactly that. Just look at the pivotal scenes of Max and Goofy both faced with their hard individual choice. Max has been nothing but cruel and cold to his father, and yet, after one small, measly moment of Hi Dad soup, he struggles big time with transferring the lie from Roxanne to his dad. And likewise, Goofy has been trying to both re-earn Max's trust and regain his confidence in Max throughout the film, and it's been a struggle despite us seeing how badly he wants it. And then, when he does reclaim it, we see him stand up to his bully, his toxic influence, Pete, defending his son's honor.
He's just a bad kid, that's all.
I don't believe you.
What?
I don't believe you, Pete. I don't need to check the map. I trust my son.
Yes, these characters are rather simple and straightforward in their focused endeavors, but given the 2 stories being told here and the analogous subplot at play, the story is never just black and white. It's an emotional roller coaster, which brings us to my final condition for a good animation film for adults. Number 3, there needs to be a big, thematically rich, emotional element. There needs to be an emotional tug that reminds us what it's like to be a kid, an emotional tap on the shoulder that retunes ourselves with our younger souls, whether that's a beautiful scene, inspiring or sad music, or just a single line.
I know that! I just wanted to be part of it.
It reminds us how we felt when we were kids, as well as showing us how our parents probably felt while dealing with us. And let me tell you, a Goofy movie hits this nail straight on the head. A Goofy movie is an emotional film, and not just in the sense that it has sad and powerful moments, which it does, but I mean, the entire film is driven by emotion. From one scene to the next, the story threads are all pushed forward by emotion, from teen angst to a parent's distrust. And it's a big gambit. It's very risky for a film to do something like this. Yes, it's good to have character-driven stories, but almost every single good one has extrinsic events that allow us to see how our characters react. But no, basically everything that takes place in a Goofy movie is directly caused by its characters. And this could easily blow up in their face, but the filmmakers really knew how to balance the emotion so well so that going into my personal favorite musical number, Nobody Else But You, the want is there for a true reconciliation. We as an audience want to see them bury the hatchet legitimately this time, and then progress us towards a fun and goofy climax. We want to see Max and Goofy working together as a family unit, with them seeing each other eye to eye, understanding one another and where they're coming from. And that's exactly what we get, which is why it's all so satisfying. Heck, even the last musical number, Eye to Eye, brings me to tears given what it represents for our characters. Again, I'm not trying to rehash the film with the play-by-play, but I do have 2 more pivotal takeaways to share from the film's final moments. Remember, at the start, Max wanted nothing to do with his father. He wanted to get as far away as possible, and he feared anything remotely resembling Goofy that was within him or coming out of him. But after the film's events, especially after their lovely duet and Goofy's shocking revelation with that single line, it's now clear that Max sees the value in doing things the way his dad might. There comes a time in every boy's or man's life when he's pinned against the wall and asks himself, what would my father do? And the film blesses us with a great rendition of this moment when they're forced down a waterfall and Max's only chance and only thought is to do the perfect cast, a fishing technique that he immediately dismissed earlier on in the film.
The perfect what?
The perfect cast. My dad taught it to me when I was about your age. Okay now, watch carefully.
And he's able to pull it off and save his dad, which also kind of reaffirms Goofy at the same time that he saved his son, seeing now that he has instilled some quality values in him.
Perfect cast.
This movie really is like a beautiful dance, and honestly, the more you watch it and analyze it, like I've had to for this video, you'll see just how much the film truly offers. And it's no more evident than with its final scene where Max comes clean to Roxanne, for real this time, and apologizes. They rekindle their relationship, starting things off fresh and right, and Max lets out another goofy laugh, but this time, while he's still embarrassed, again, the film is being true to its characters and representation, he's not that embarrassed. In their first encounter, he ran off because of his embarrassment, but during this last encounter, he proves he's done a 180 by planting his feet and then introducing Roxanne to his father.
Roxanne, I'd like you to meet my dad.
Enchanté, mademoiselle.
It's an undoubtedly emotional, funny, relatable, and goofy movie, and I'm just so happy that we have something as great as this, because it's certainly one that I can relate to personally and hold close to my heart. It's one I can walk away from each time, learning something new, or maybe gaining a little bit more perspective, and it certainly makes me grateful for the relationship that I share with my own father. Honestly, at the end of the day, my deepest fear is having to grow up without him. I know I'll lose him one day, hopefully far from now, and I know there will come a moment when I have to ask, what would my father do, instead of just giving him a call to ask for his advice. So, gents and ladies, hug your father today, give him a call, just let him know you love him, and if you've already lost your father, or if he was never in the picture, then call your mom and tell her the same. And to all the dads out there, happy Father's Day. The world would not be what it is without supportive and strong male role models like you guys, so truly, thank you for doing one of the hardest jobs out there, raising a child, or children, but no, sorry, dogs don't count. I know it's often an underappreciated role, especially for single fathers, but keep up the good work, gents, and hang in there. But that's enough out of me today. If you enjoy the video, do me a solid and leave a like and comment your favorite moment or your favorite song from a Goofy movie. That's the best way to help this channel out against the odds that are the YouTube algorithms. But as always, thank you all so much for tuning in and sticking around. I will see you all next time.